Hi, I'm Mitchell from DPReview, and strap in everyone, this is going to be a big one. This is the Canon EOS R6 III, the company's latest enthusiast-tier hybrid camera that aims for solid performance in both video and stills. With that said, so many updates this time around are based on video, so I should probably shoot the rest of this with it. One sec. Okay, recording, focus is good. What's up with those? Anyways, from the outside, the EOS R6 III looks a lot like its predecessor. You have a very similar button layout, the same viewfinder and fully articulating screen, and a chunky grip that I find really comfortable even when using larger lenses. Canon has a formula and it's sticking to it. At its heart though is something new, a 33 megapixel FSI sensor, which offers 16% more linear resolution than the 24 megapixel one from the EOS R6 II. This sensor actually showed up a few weeks back in the cinema focused ESC50, but this is the first time we're seeing it in a mirrorless camera that's aimed at consumers. The extra megapixels don't seem to have slowed it down at all though. It can still reach burst rates of up to 12 FPS with its mechanical shutter and 40 FPS in e-shutter mode. It still has pre-burst capture, and unlike with the EOS R6 II, you no longer have to go into a special mode to access it. It's just an option in the menu. Okay, but what about rolling shutter? Nowadays, the trend in enthusiast cameras is to use partially stacked sensors to get really quick readout speeds, so you don't have to worry about a jello-like effect when you're panning or shooting fast-moving subjects. But Canon hasn't done that. And the 33 megapixel sensor on the Sony a7 IV is notoriously really quite slow when it comes to video. So is that going to be the same story here? Well, how do I put this? It's really fast. When shooting stills with the electronic shutter, you're looking at readout speeds of around 13.5 milliseconds, which is somehow even faster than the partially stacked sensors that the Nikon Z8 III and Panasonic S1 II use. It doesn't seem to be quite as quick in all of its video modes. We measured 17.9 milliseconds in the open gate mode and 14.3 milliseconds in the oversampled 4K modes, but those are still more than acceptable for most scenarios. And if you are shooting something really fast, you can drop down to the native, probably line-skipped 4K modes, which are a kinda jaw-dropping 7.1 milliseconds. It's actually so fast that it can do oversampled 4K at 60 FPS, which you don't even get with the higher-end EOS R5 II. And its 120 FPS 4K mode doesn't have a crop, which is unique in this class, though that is definitely going to be line-skipped or subsampled in some way, so you're still going to lose a bit of quality since it's not using all the pixels. But even in that mode, you still get all the subject detection autofocus features, which I genuinely may not have believed had I not tested it for myself. Now, the attentive among you may have noticed that I said open gate earlier. Yes, Canon has finally added a mode for recording from the entire sensor, giving you a 3:2, roughly 7K image that gives you a lot of flexibility in post. You have more room to pan around the frame, making it a bit more dynamic, or stable, and you can take landscape and vertical clips from the same recording, so you don't have to shoot two separate videos for like YouTube or Instagram and TikTok. Something editing Mitchell is probably appreciating right about now. There are a few other nice little video workflow improvements compared to the EOS R6 II. For one, you get a full-size HDMI port instead of a kind of flimsy micro one, and it has the new menu system that lets you set frame rate, resolution, and compression types separately, rather than just giving you a list of every possible combination. And now there's a color button on the back that makes it relatively easy to switch between your standard recording modes and things like C-Log 2 or 3, or the HLG and PQ HDR modes. Perhaps the biggest addition though is the fact that the EOS R6 III can now record raw video internally to the CF Express card at up to 17:9 7K at 60 FPS. Though it will max out at 30 FPS if you want to record in standard rather than light compression or if you want open gate. There's also no 16:9 or lower resolution 4K RAW modes, so you'll really need to stock up on storage if you plan on using it much. Also, yes, I said CF Express. The EOS R6 II had 2 UHS-2 SD card slots, which were totally fine for what it offered, but the EOS R6 III swapped one of those out for a faster CF Express Type B slot. That should be better at keeping up with the burst rates and raw video recording. Getting back to stills though, Canon also says it's improved the autofocus performance. Like its predecessor, the EOS R6 III can still recognize humans, animals, and vehicles, and has the option to automatically detect those. But it apparently has the upgraded algorithms from the EOS R5 II and R1. It also gets the Register People Priority feature, where you can tell it to recognize a specific person and focus on tracking them over other people that may be in the scene. Unfortunately, it doesn't get the Action Priority mode that Canon introduced with those higher-end cameras, which is made to recognize key moments in various kinds of sports. Let's say one player passes the ball, the camera sees that and starts tracking the player that's received it. Things like that. Funnily enough, that feature may honestly be better suited for a camera like this, where the person using it is probably not a professional sports shooter who already knows how to track the action using the old ways. However, Canon has told us that the AI coprocessor that powers that feature is still just too expensive to include in lower-end cameras right now. That also means it doesn't get the in-camera AI upscaling and denoise features, nor the out-of-focus detection and playback, though I'm not really sure how many people will miss those. And honestly, that's kind of what makes this such an interesting camera to me. It seems like Canon is being quite aggressive towards the competition and not giving a ton of thought to protecting its higher-end cameras. The EOS R6 II was already a competitive camera for today's market, making it high up on our best cameras under $2,500 buying guide. Canon probably could have just reused that sensor, updated the processor to support the new autofocus algorithms and raw video, swapped in a CF Express slot, and called it a day. But it didn't. Instead, we also got what looks like a really impressive new sensor, though I cannot wait to get a production model and put it in front of our test scene to see what trade-offs, if any, there are for the speed. And as for features, it seems like Canon looked at what Nikon, Sony, and Panasonic were doing and said, well, sure, me too, and with a higher resolution sensor, or in Sony's case, a faster one. Combine that with everything else this camera offers, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people looking at the much more expensive EOS R5 II saw this and said, well, do I really need the extras that gives me? That's especially true given the price. The EOS R6 III will retail for $27.99, which is about $300 more than the EOS R6 II launched at. But given the inflation and in the US tariffs that have happened since then, that feels like a pretty reasonable bump given the improvements that it's made. The EOS R6 II is also sticking around though, so if you don't shoot video, you should probably keep an eye out for how low that ends up going. It could end up being a really impressive budget option. Anyways, I'm getting cold, it's starting to rain, and I think that's all I have to say about this camera. So thank you all for watching. I'm interested to know what you think of the EOS R6 III. I can imagine some people looking at the spec sheet and saying, oh, this seems like a relatively small update. But after using it for about a week, I think the little tweaks and new sensor really add up. Let me know in the comments below and over on our newly renovated forums. And be sure to give a like and subscribe here on YouTube. This video was so much work, and I'm just hoping it was worth it. Have a good one.